So, it has been a while. There's this common struggle around people trying to get a software job or trying to build up a portfolio, trying to work on side projects, which is how do I find a side project that I don't get bored of in 2 days? And for myself, I think I can relate very, very deeply to this. I have always had a love-hate relationship with side projects because on one hand, I do love creating things, and when you're coding and you get into that flow, there's just something about that feeling that is one of the most satisfying feelings you can find. But on the other hand, even back into college when I was first starting to learn how to code, I would get really, really motivated about doing a new side project, learning a new technology, stuff like that, for maybe like 1 day. And then I would wake up the next morning and I would never touch that side project again. The same thing happened to me when I was picking up doing a lot of coding tutorials. You know, like I would follow some video, I would code along with the project, not really understand the whole thing, and create some sort of like Ticketmaster clone or something. And then after ending the tutorial, I would get bored, I wouldn't really know how to apply anything I learned, and I would drop the whole project. But recently, side projects have become more and more important to me. So today, I wanted to share my own story about how I've found and worked on a side project that I loved deeply and was able to come back to every single day. And hopefully I can give you tips if you're also struggling to find motivation or struggling on what to work on with side projects. So to give a little bit of background on my life recently, I've been studying to go back to a software job, but that means I haven't truly been coding in maybe like 6 or 7 months. And recently I had a chat with one of my friends and met up with him and talked about how he had recently been laid off from a job and was actively looking for new software engineering positions. And he told me about his experience looking for a job and how it was really just unlike anything he had ever experienced, even though he had 7 years of experience. And he talked about how just uniquely challenging it was compared to all the other times. Well, after hearing that, I was like, well, shit, it's time for me to start coding again. Because before this conversation, I was mostly just doing LeetCode, I was studying system design, but I hadn't written a single line of code since like June or something. I really had to make sure that my coding skills were sharp, not just sharp as the day I left my job, if not even sharper. Hopefully. Because pretty much it's just guaranteed that I'm gonna be asked some sort of take-home assignment, I'm gonna be asked to code on the spot, to create a little project or something for my interviews. All this stuff is guaranteed. And I think if you go online, a lot of people say stuff like, just build a Twitter clone, build a Facebook clone, a Reddit clone, some shit like that. And that's all well and good, but am I really gonna be passionate about that? Or am I gonna drop this project in like 8 hours? Because I think there's nothing more demoralizing than starting a side project and completely burning out on it and not even wanting to touch the whole thing ever again. And then starting this cycle over and over again where you're just working on the first like 10% of the project over and over and over. Like forcing yourself to work on things, forcing yourself to code things that you don't really care about coding, that sucks. There is a lawnmower outside. So for picking a project, I wanted to focus on 2 things. Focusing on a project that had real data that I actually cared about, and building a product that someone will use, even if that someone is just me. But luckily, I had this perfect data set that had been waiting for me for like 2 years of my life. So ever since the summer of 2022, I have been playing basketball with my friends every single weekend, generally with the same people over and over again. And because we're all lunatics and we like to talk shit, we've recorded every single game we've played and recorded the stats for every single game we played as well. And given that, there's just 2 years of data just sitting in Google spreadsheets, just waiting for someone to go in there to wrap a web application or throw it all into a database or something of that nature. And this was my calling. This was what I was gonna do. It fulfilled all of my prerequisite goals. Real data, data that I care about, and actual users, which was me and my friends and our ability to flame each other online and stuff. So let's go through a 10x speedrun of what I did. First, I had to write this script to load all the data from the spreadsheets into a Postgres database. This probably sounds pretty easy, but I had to design the database schema. I had to deal with all the little edge cases and inconsistencies that came with our spreadsheet. That shit took me like 2 days of time when I thought it would maybe take like 10 minutes total, which is kind of programming in a nutshell, if we're being real. Then I set up my application with my favorite stack, which is what I use on most of my jobs, which is React on the front end, Node.js, Express, and Postgres on the back end. Then I picked my tool for hosting the site, which I picked Heroku for its ease of use and my familiarity with it. And after that, I got to work writing all the features to view the data, to enter and record new games, to edit the data from old games, to filter through the different stats by date range, pretty much just duplicating all of the functionality from the spreadsheet. And the feature that I really enjoyed the most, the one that was the funniest to me, was this data visualization tool that I could see everyone's stats over time. Because now I can use this data to flame my friends and to call them out when they tell me that they scored X amount of points last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something. Or when they say they've gotten way better in the last month or so. I can check all that now. And all in all, this took me about 2 weeks of my life working maybe 2 to 4 hours a day on it. And it's all fully hosted, it's accessible anywhere from the internet. And hopefully this will be a product that me and my friends are going to be using weekly from now on. And in those 2 weeks I was building this project, I remembered why I liked coding in the first place, why I chose it as my major, why I made these little graphing calculator games in high school and stuff like that. I was thinking about this project. I was dreaming about this project. I was excited to work on it. I was up at like 11, 12 p.m. at night running database migrations on my stupid side project. But every single day I was working on it, I was just so passionate about it. I was so happy about it. And I was just looking forward to that day when I could finally put it all together and host it on that site so that all of my friends could see it. I just deeply loved every single part of this app. Every frustrating bug, every weird configuration issue, every deployment issue. I loved every part of it, and all of it was extremely rewarding. This is the kind of side project that was the best for me, and the kind of side project that you need to find if you're trying to work on these things for yourself. Something that's not necessarily useful to the general public, but something that has deep meaning to you and will be useful for yourself. That's all that really matters. I have real users, I have real data, and I have real stakes and rewards for completing new features. Every time I write a new chart, I build a new query, I build a new data visualization into it, I get a little bit excited because it exposes some sort of advanced basketball stat. It exposes when certain people play better than others. And it's just something that me and my friends can all use and enjoy. I've also been working on a second side project because, as some of you might know, I've been studying a lot of LeetCode lately, and I've recorded all of my questions down in a spreadsheet. So basically, I took this whole spreadsheet and I put it on a local database as usual, and I visualized all of my different questions by how long they take, by which topics I struggle the hardest with, by which questions take the longest for me, which topics I'm bad at, stuff like that. But it's not even close to done, and it's not really ready for me to show it off. So I'll save that topic for another day. But so today I talked about my story, and you might be asking how you can apply some of my advice to your life, or if you're working on side projects and stuff like that. And you're probably also asking how you can carve out time to make a side project and how you can find one that you deeply love. I think to start, remember the rules that I talked about earlier. You don't have to force yourself to do a project. You just have to love and enjoy the process. Instead of starting by thinking about what you can build, I think it's important to start with thinking about what kind of datasets can you use to work into an application that you love. My first tip is to find real data that you can use to build your project. Build your project from the data first, and then build all the other things afterwards. Mostly because you want to enjoy actually looking at your side project, and if it's just a blank page with nothing on it, with the potential of creating data, that's gonna be boring as fuck. And if you don't have 2 years of basketball stats with your friends to reference, there are other ways you can find data. What I did for that second LeetCode project I was talking about was I actually went on this site called Kaggle, which was basically a free datasets kind of application or whatever, where you can just download gigantic datasets about whatever you want, like really whatever you want. What I downloaded was the entire LeetCode database. Every single question, the topic, the related questions, like whatever, stuff like that. And then I used it to cross-reference to all the questions that I've been doing lately to get some metadata from it, like the related topics, similar questions, stuff like that. And I just like loaded it all into a database. So for you, I think it's important that you find some data that you're interested in. Maybe if it's sports that you're interested in, maybe it's like weather patterns, maybe it's like demographics in a certain country or something. Or maybe there are other kinds of data sets that you might be more interested in. I remember one of my old coworkers was extremely passionate about one of her side projects, which involved some sort of Dungeons and Dragons data set. I didn't understand it too much, but I could tell that she loved every second of it. And once you have your data set, just do something fun with it. Just do something to expose that data in a way that you'll enjoy looking at. And my second tip is to work on a tool that you'll actually use. Let's be real. This basketball app is not production ready. There is no fucking person in the world who's going to use this application besides me and my crazy friends. But I found a very specific use case for us to use it for. And for those users, it's exactly what we need. If you can find some problem out there, some annoying thing that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, just create it yourself and be your own first user. My LeetCode project lately has been based around the fact that I like to review a lot of questions that I've done in the past, and there's no great tool to use for spaced repetition or all that kind of stuff. So I built it myself. I created a problem myself, a problem that maybe not that many people will care about, and I executed on it. Try to find that for yourself. My last tip is to set your expectations just like way lower. Because, okay, let's be honest, like every time we work on a side project, we're probably thinking that we're Mark Zuckerberg sitting in our college dorm room trying to write the next billion-dollar application. When in reality, no one's gonna use your fucking application. It's just about if you love it for yourself and to gain experience. Set your expectations way lower and just enjoy the process of making it. One last thing I wanted to cover was the prospect of how to find time for coding after work and side projects and whatnot. And to cover this, I'll share another quick story. I used to be the kind of person that would say this one phrase all the time, which was, I don't have time for whatever, X. And you know, like I would repeat this to my friends and everyone else that would listen all the time. I would say, I don't have time for X. Like it was some sort of badge of honor that I was so busy I didn't have time for these small, petty things. But the problem was, when I said that I didn't have time, what I was really saying to people and myself was that I am actively choosing other priorities over doing X. I was always making a choice. I was always choosing something that was easier or more fun or something that would pass the time easier than doing X. So if we're talking about making time for anything in our lives, I think it's important to ask yourself, what is important to you? How important is this one thing to you? If it's not important, great, throw it out the window. But if it is important to you, set small amounts of time every single day to do that activity. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and focus on how many days in a row you can do it rather than how long you can do it for one day. Because as we've seen in the beginning, it's too easy to have these motivational spurts where you code for like 12 hours straight for one day and then you never code again for like 6 months. Working 5 minutes a day for an entire year is 30 hours of work. And I think that's much better than 0. So start small, make it fun for yourself. And as always, thanks for watching.